Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The kitchen was warm with the smell of simmering broth and fresh-cut ginger when I balanced one leg up on the counter, adjusting the knot of my robe. I thought I was alone, lost in the quiet rhythm of the evening, until I heard footsteps behind me. Soft, steady, unmistakably his. I didn't move. Not even when the air shifted. He stopped in the doorway, breath catching just slightly, and I knew he'd noticed what I wasn't wearing beneath the thin fabric. Still, I kept stirring the pot as if nothing was out of place, pretending I didn't feel the long, slow sweep of his gaze trailing over me like warm fingertips. "Looks like you're busy," he said, voice lower than usual. I glanced over my shoulder. Just a quick look. But it was enough. Our eyes locked, and for a moment everything, pots, pans, the quiet hum of the stove, faded. My heartbeat stumbled, then picked up, loud enough that I wondered if he could hear it from where he stood. He stepped closer. Not touching me yet, but close enough that I felt the heat of him brush the curve of my back. Close enough that the faint scent of his cologne wrapped around me, fresh, clean, familiar. "You always cook like this," he teased gently. I smirked, lifting my chin as if this were perfectly normal. "Only when I'm inspired." He exhaled, slow and shaky, the kind of breath someone takes when they're trying very hard not to say something they're thinking. His hand hovered near my hip, close enough that the space between skin and air felt electrified. I didn't pull away. He didn't either. The silence between us shifted, no longer awkward, no longer innocent. It felt charged, like one wrong move or one bold word could change everything between us. I could feel his gaze drifting from my bare thigh resting on the counter to the robe loosely hugging my waist, to my lips, lingering there too long. "Do you need help with anything?" he asked, but the question sounded like he meant something else entirely. I swallowed, pulse thudding. "Maybe," I whispered. The spoon slipped from my hand and clattered onto the counter. His eyes flicked up sharply. And in that tiny moment, something unspoken cracked open between us, an uninvited closeness neither of us dared break first. Before either of us could say another word, something happened at the doorway behind him. And everything changed. The moment at the kitchen counter should have ended with a laugh, a casual joke, or even a shy excuse to break the tension, but instead, he stepped back just enough to let the moment breathe without letting it die. He cleared his throat, but his eyes, they lingered far longer than his voice would ever admit. We'd known each other too long for a simple look to mean nothing. Too long for a simple closeness to feel accidental. Years of friendship had turned into partnership, partnership had turned into comfort, and comfort, slowly, secretly, had begun to shift into something neither of us dared name. But comfort also carried weight. Behind the warmth of our easy conversations lived tiny fractures, moments we didn't talk about, moments we both pretended were too small to matter. Like the way he never mentioned the late nights he saw me pacing the hallway, unable to sleep. Or how I never commented on the messages from someone he used to be close to, messages he always read twice before replying. We weren't broken, but we weren't whole either. Perhaps that's why tonight felt different. He walked past me to grab a glass of water, but his arm brushed mine, not by mistake, not today. A soft, fleeting contact that sent a shiver down the back of my neck. He felt it too, the subtle pause of his breath told me so. But instead of pulling away, he stayed close, leaning against the counter beside me. "You've been quiet lately," he said, voice softer now. "So have you." He nodded, eyes drifting to the floor, then back to me. "We're both avoiding something. Aren't we?" The truth sat heavy on my tongue. Yes. Yes, we were. He looked tired, tired from pretending that our closeness was harmless, tired from pretending that every near touch or shared glance was accidental. Tired from holding back something he didn't know how to reveal. A part of me wanted to tell him everything, the dreams I never voiced, the nights I wished he'd knock on my door, the way my heart always sped up when he stood too close. But another part feared that the moment I spoke, reality would come crashing in, shattering whatever fragile balance we were holding on to. "I don't want to lose what we already have," I whispered. He looked up sharply, like the words meant more than I intended. "You won't," he said with a certainty that almost made me believe him. Almost. But then his hand brushed mine again, light, hesitant, but deliberate. And for a moment, it didn't feel like reassurance. It felt like confession. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick. Heavy. Alive. He exhaled softly, leaning in just slightly, as if drawn to me by something magnetic and unspoken. But just before he got close enough for me to feel his breath on my skin, he stopped. Something unsaid trembled between us, fragile and dangerous. The silence between us didn't fade, it deepened, thickened, wrapped around the kitchen like a quiet storm waiting to break. He stood close enough that I felt the warmth of him, close enough that one small step forward would erase the last boundary we were both clinging to. But instead of stepping closer, he stepped back. Just slightly. Just enough to leave a breath of space between us. "You know," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "you really shouldn't stand around the kitchen like that if someone else might walk in." Someone else. Someone specific. My eyebrow arched. "Like who?" He hesitated. "You know who?" "Ah. Her. The woman he'd been texting. The one who'd suddenly reappeared after months of silence. The one I pretended didn't bother me, but whose name tightened something sharp inside my chest every time it flashed across his screen. "You're worried about what she'd think?" I asked softly. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Jealousy slid warm and unwelcome under my skin, not the angry kind, but the quiet, aching kind that makes your pulse quicken because you don't want to admit why it hurts. "She's just a friend," he said quickly. I replied, turning back to the stove even though nothing was cooking anymore. Funny how just a friend can text someone at 2 in the morning. His breath snagged. "You saw that?" "I wasn't looking," I said, "but you weren't exactly hiding the smile on your face." He moved closer again, this time without hesitation. His hand rested on the counter beside my leg, his face inches from mine. His eyes flicked briefly to where my robe had fallen slightly apart, then back to my face, as if he was trying hard to choose the safer place to look. "There's nothing between us," he murmured, and despite everything, the tension in his voice made my pulse quicken. "If there were, I wouldn't be here talking to you like this." The meaning behind his words hit harder than he probably intended. My breath caught, but before I could respond, he leaned even closer, close enough that I felt the warmth of his breath on my jaw, close enough that one tiny movement could turn this into something we wouldn't be able to take back. "Unless," he whispered, voice trembling just slightly, "you want there to be something." The air crackled. One wrong word. One bold step. And something forbidden would ignite. And we both knew it. The kitchen had grown quieter, the sounds of the evening fading into a hush that wrapped around us like a private world. He moved closer under the pretense of reaching for a spice jar, and I felt the brush of his fingers against mine, brief, deliberate, electric. My pulse raced, my senses sharpened, and every rational thought slipped further from my control. "You're quiet tonight," he said, voice low, almost teasing, but there was an edge to it that made my chest tighten. "Am I?" I whispered, pretending to stir the pot but letting my eyes wander to his. His presence was overwhelming, closer than ever, his cologne filling the small space, every subtle movement amplified by the tension crackling in the air. I caught him looking at me, not at the cooking, not at the floor, but at me. The way he lingered made my stomach flutter, a strange mix of nerves and something dangerous, something I knew could tip into desire if we weren't careful. He leaned in just slightly, as if drawn by gravity, his hand now resting on the edge of the counter near mine. We were alone, completely, and yet every inch between us felt charged, heavy with unspoken possibilities. "Do you ever think about what could happen?" he asked, voice barely above a murmur. His eyes locked onto mine, searching, daring, challenging. I swallowed, heart hammering. All the time, I admitted, though it sounded smaller than I felt. He smiled, slow and quiet, but it wasn't just playful, it was knowing, teasing, full of tension that made my knees feel weak. Every movement, every brush of skin, every almost touch made the air between us tremble. And then, the sound of the front door clicking shut jolted us both, sharp and sudden. We froze. Our private storm suspended, broken for a heartbeat by reality intruding. He glanced toward the door, then back at me. His gaze was unreadable for a moment, before sliding over my face again. Did someone just arrive? I whispered, the tension twisting into something sharper, danger, secrecy, temptation. He said nothing, only tilted his head slightly, a faint smirk curling his lips, and the intensity in his eyes promised that nothing between us would remain the same once the door opened fully. And with that single sound, the fragile balance we'd been holding shattered. What would happen next, neither of us could predict. The front door had barely clicked shut before the atmosphere in the kitchen shifted into something electric. Every sound, every shadow, every breath between us became magnified. He didn't move away, if anything, he leaned in just slightly, drawn toward me like we were the only two people in the world. But then, his phone buzzed. He froze. His eyes flicked toward the screen, and in that instant, I saw something I hadn't expected, a message, glowing bright, unmistakably from someone else. My stomach tightened, not with jealousy alone, but with the raw punch of realization. I began, voice catching. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I knew well, the one he always used when he was caught between honesty and hiding. I didn't want you to find out like this, he admitted, voice low, trembling slightly. I stepped back, trying to put space between us, though my heart still raced at the proximity. You've been talking to her, all this time? My voice wasn't angry, just sharp with disbelief. Yes, he confessed, looking down, ashamed but unwilling to lie. I didn't think it meant anything. I thought I could manage it. I thought I could keep it separate from us. The tension was unbearable. The warmth I'd felt moments before twisted into something raw, something complicated. I wanted to be angry, to push him away, but I also couldn't stop the flutter in my chest, the part of me that still cared, still wanted to believe that there was something salvageable between us. And now? I asked, soft but steady. I realized I was wrong, he said, finally looking at me again, eyes full of regret and longing. You're the one I want. Not her. Not anyone else. I didn't know how to say it until now. My breath hitched. The intensity in his gaze was undeniable, the honesty cutting through the confusion. His hand hovered near mine, not touching, yet somehow, even that almost contact sent a surge of emotion through me. I should have been honest from the start, he continued. I should have trusted us instead of testing myself with someone else. The moment stretched, fragile and charged. We stood there, two people caught between betrayal and confession, the air around us crackling with unspoken apologies and unacknowledged desire. The kitchen felt smaller, closer, every inch of space around us amplified by what remained unsaid. And then, he smiled, faint but genuine, like a fragile bridge being rebuilt. Can we start over? Just be honest with each other? I hesitated, my pulse thudding, every nerve screaming yes, and yet the memory of the message lingered. But deep down, beneath the shock and the tension, I knew the answer wasn't simple. Because in that charged silence, the real twist wasn't the message, it was the truth that neither of us could ignore. We wanted each other more than we could admit, no matter the risks. And just as I was about to respond, the kitchen lights flickered, once, twice, leaving us in shadows, and the door creaked open slightly. We weren't alone anymore. The flicker of the kitchen lights had barely faded before the silence broke, heavy and almost unbearable. We were still inches apart, but the energy between us had shifted, no longer just tension, now raw and charged with the weight of choices made and truths revealed. He ran a hand down his face, jaw tight. I never meant to hurt you, he said, voice strained. But I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I swallowed, pulse hammering, trying to steady the mix of anger, betrayal, and something I couldn't name. You didn't just pretend, I said softly, my voice trembling. You made me question everything we've had. He flinched, as if each word hit him physically. I know, he admitted. And I deserve that. I had to face it. Face what I really want. The air felt almost unbearable, each heartbeat loud, each breath sharp. I wanted to lash out, to turn away, but something deeper held me in place. The truth in his eyes was raw, undeniable. He wasn't hiding behind excuses anymore. I don't know if I can just forget this, I confessed, the words heavy with honesty. It's not just about the message. It's about trust. About us. He stepped closer, careful, measured, but unstoppable in his intent. I don't want you to forget, he said, tone fierce yet vulnerable. I want to rebuild it. From here. With nothing hidden. If you'll let me. For a moment, all I could hear was the rush of my own heartbeat, the faint hum of the stove, the quiet rhythm of our breathing. The past felt like a shadow behind us, but the present, the closeness, the raw honesty, pulled me forward. I took a breath, then another, letting the tension in my body ease just slightly. You're asking for a lot, I said. But maybe it's worth trying. His eyes softened, relief washing over his features, and for the first time tonight, the kitchen didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like the beginning of something fragile and beautiful. He reached out, brushing my hand lightly, not forcefully, just enough to connect, to promise. I let him, letting the warmth of that touch speak for the words we couldn't yet say. The tension didn't vanish completely, but it transformed into something daring, hopeful, alive. A new chapter in a story we both wanted to write, carefully, honestly, together. And just as we stood there, holding that fragile truce, the faint flicker of the door opening behind us reminded us that the world outside wasn't gone, but in that moment, for the first time in a long time, we had chosen each other. No regrets. No lies. Only the daring risk of honesty, and the electric possibility of what came next. The kitchen was quiet now, but the air between us was no longer tense, it was warm, full of relief and something tender that had been simmering beneath the surface all along. The shadows of the evening danced gently on the walls, reflecting the golden glow of the lights, and for a moment, it felt like the world had narrowed to just the two of us. He reached out, this time without hesitation, taking my hand in both of his. The gesture was soft, grounding, and it sent a ripple of calm through me. I looked up at him, seeing all the raw honesty, the apology, the desire to start over, mirrored in his eyes. I don't want to waste another moment, he said, voice quiet but steady. I want to be honest. I want us. A smile tugged at my lips, one I hadn't allowed myself in days, maybe weeks. Then let's start over, I whispered. No secrets. No pretending. Just us. He smiled back, and that single moment felt like a promise, a bridge between everything that had been broken and everything we were about to build. Slowly, deliberately, we closed the small distance between us, until we were standing side by side, shoulders almost touching, our hands intertwined. The warmth of him beside me felt like coming home, like finding a part of myself I hadn't realized was missing. I could feel his heartbeat, steady and sure, and it matched mine in a rhythm that was entirely new, entirely ours. I've wanted this for so long, he admitted softly. To just be close, to be with you. I laughed quietly, a sound filled with relief and happiness. Then don't let me go, I teased lightly, though the playfulness didn't mask the sincerity behind my words. He leaned in, resting his forehead gently against mine, the kind of closeness that spoke louder than any words ever could. We stayed like that, eyes closed, breathing each other in, letting the warmth of the moment fill every corner of the room. Outside, the world went on, indifferent, but inside, in our little kitchen, something delicate and enduring had begun. A bond forged through honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to face our feelings. When he finally pulled back just enough to look at me, I saw the same mixture of hope and love reflected in his gaze. "We'll figure it out," he said. "Together." I nodded, my heart full, and smiled. Together. And in that shared promise, the tension, the heartbreak, and the uncertainty of the past hours melted away, leaving only the quiet, undeniable magic of a love renewed, stronger, bolder, and entirely ours.